We are live now, President Chavez, and it does appear that you have a quorum. You also have a couple of invited guests that are here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Commissioners, we'll call this Caddo Parish Commission special meeting to order. It is July the 8th at 12:32 p.m. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Cawthorn. I heard him earlier, but I didn't hear him. Commissioner Cawthorn, you there?
Present.
Commissioner Gage Wise. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Okay, from what I heard, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I have 11 present and 1 absent.
I believe I heard the same.
That
Thank you,
means
commissioners, for
we have
being
a
here,
quorum.
staff and everybody else. We will start with our invocation led by Commissioner Taliaferro, and our Pledge of Allegiance started with Commissioner Epperson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you as sinners, needing your forgiveness for the wrongs that we have done to you and to our fellow man. We humble ourselves and we ask your grace, O Lord, upon our city, our parish, our state, and our nation. Be with our president and all of our elected officials to guide them to do the will of the people that they represent. Be with us today. Give us the wisdom to do the will of our constituents for the good of all that we represent. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Let us all stand, please. I'll ask that all military and veterans would render the standing hand to brow salute. All others, right hand across your heart, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taliaferro. Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. We move on to citizens' comments. Mr. Everson.
Yes, we do have a few citizens' comments that we've received electronically. We also have one caller on the line right now. So Deputy Nations, can you connect the caller?
One moment, please.
That number while we're waiting, if anybody else would like to call in, is 318-226-6596.
Okay, ma'am, you're on speaker.
Okay, this Tracer, and I'm gonna be. Okay, I want to go through my unalienable rights that come from my Creator God, whom I do believe in. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I can't have life wearing a mask. It's not for me. I cannot wear one. I won't even go into that. Liberty is my freedom. My freedom is not to wear a mask. I do believe if you're sick, you need to wear one. Wear one. If you're not sick, don't wear one. Dr. Stab, I want y'all to take these names down because you need to do a little bit more study before you vote that we have to wear a mask. Dr. Shaba Adurier. Ayyaburia. Rashid Buttar, Dr. Rashid Buttar. They were the top doctors in America before COVID. They've got things to say. Why don't you check them out? Check AmericanLibertyReport.com out. Before you make. Then I want you to. OSHA says that the mask may help. I don't know about y'all's language, but it means may help and may not help. Look, hypercapnia and hypoxia, we'll find out that the mask do more harm because on the CDC.gov says you've got to take care to support your vital organs. It's on there, and it doesn't say a mask will help. It says this hypoxia and hypercapnia by wearing a mask. Wearing a mask is causing shortness of breath, dizziness, and headache. When wearing a mask too long and rebreathing your own carbon dioxide, it basically shuts your brain and your kidneys and your vital organs down. Hypoxia is depriving the body of adequate oxygen supply. This can damage your lungs. People are actually fainting and dying of this craziness. So when people come around and say, I want people to die because I won't wear a mask, I think these people that don't do a lot of study up in our little politics government, they might be wanting to kill us. Okay? So you need to check out also who just said today that it's asymptomatic, that it's proven that asymptomatic cannot take it.
That's not
I
true.
know y'all believe in who, so we're not. I can't get. I won't even go into that. But anyway, if you have a fever, sick, wear a mask. Don't have a fever and you're not sick, you should not be commanded to wear a mask. So Dr. Fox lied to us 2 or 3 times, and he also said that his computer model said that it might help if you're wearing a mask. So I'm just saying right now that I need all of this stuff where you're going to take my rights away and make a mask. When I'm not sick, I can't get it. Now, there's a reason I can't wear a mask, which I'm not going into. Well, I hope y'all would do a little bit of study on this. Look up some of these things. Doctors were not, they were doctors before COVID. Y'all need to look up some of this stuff and who says it can't be. I'm being told that you're also separating the people. I'm wanting to kill people because I can't wear a mask.
Miss Draper,
Oh, yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you've reached your 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And I believe we have one more caller on the line. Is that correct?
We actually have 2 more callers. 1 second, please. Mr. Medicus, are you still on the line? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put you on speaker. Just state your name and you can go ahead with your comments. You only have 3 minutes. Hold on 1 second. Okay, you can go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. This is Mark Medicus at 10455 Linwood. And as a card-carrying Democrat, I have a few questions concerning face masks. And one of them is, if the mask works so well, then why are we social distancing? And if social distancing works, then why are we wearing masks? What really gets me, if masks and social distancing work, then why are our many businesses still closed? I don't understand that. Better than that, I mean, people are scared of getting fined for congregating in crowds, as if catching a deadly disease and dying a horrible death wasn't enough of it. And who in the heck decided, whoever decided the liquor store is more essential than a church is obviously an alcoholic. So let me get this straight also. There's no cure for a virus that can be killed by sanitizers and hand soap. And I'm trying to really understand this. I don't want to confuse high COVID cases, and really and truly our COVID deaths are decreasing overall. I'm looking at the stats in the screen right now. When our restaurants were closed, we went over to Texas. My wife and I went over to Texas with some of our friends, and we went ahead and ate over there because their restaurants were. We had some things in gear to keep it safe. We spent money over there. And force us, the Bossier, to use their services and freedoms if you turn on something mandatory. We implore each of you to consider the consequences of the government demanding a requirement rather than strongly recommending an action. Sit back, don't let emotions take control. Our sheriff department is the finest anywhere, and their services are much better served for much more serious issues than this. I really want you to consider this as you think through this, and don't make masks mandatory. Strongly recommend them, but don't make them mandatory. We still are the United States of America. All right, I appreciate you, and thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you, caller.
And that is all the calls that we have on hold.
Thank you so much. I will now read the ones that we received electronically. I've received 4. If we get any while I'm reading this, I'll let y'all know at the end. But the first one comes from Jay Taylor, and it says, I do not agree with the mask mandate. I want to keep my liberties, which include the right to or not to wear a mask. It has been proven that the masks do not really work. If someone wants to wear masks, let them, but do not mandate that I wear one. It is an overreach of government to tell me what to do with my own body. Today, it is a mask. What will it be tomorrow? Vaccines, chips? No way. A stand has to be made now. Vote no mask mandate. That concludes the comments from Mr. Taylor. The next comments are from, excuse me, Patsy Lavery. And Patsy Lavery writes, I feel I know how you feel on this issue, but I hope that you vote in support of masks and go with the city of Shreveport on this. This is the only way to get this in control for everybody working together. We wear ours when we go out. I do not feel my rights are infringed on, as many have stated. Too many I know have got it or had it or died with it. The next comment comes from Denisa Walker, and it says, Dr. Walker says, absolutely 100% against violating the rights of Americans by mandating the wearing of masks. And then the final comment comes from Ms. Shirley Fisher. She says, I am absolutely in support of both of these measures, and thank y'all for considering them because I believe they can save lives. And that concludes the public comments that we've received.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. We move on to visitors.
Under visitors, on your agenda today, we do have a carryover from yesterday's meeting, which is a presentation from Mr. Ken Kraft of his Declaration of Independence recital. I don't know if it would be appropriate. You did make a mention yesterday of wanting to invite 2 guests today. Those are Dr. Martha White and Sheriff Steve Prater, who are both on the line. I just mentioned that so that y'all will know that they are here today.
Thank you, Mr. Everson.
Did y'all want us to go ahead and play the video from Mr. Kraft?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll proceed with the video.
Resolution authorized by the Second Continental Congress, mainly authored by Thomas Jefferson. The top 10 were Philadelphia, July 4th, 1776. And these are the words for King George. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish them and institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them should seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. Such is the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain, George III, is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having a direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused to set to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass new laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation until his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them, formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, with the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasions from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for the naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent for laws establishing judiciary power. He has made judges dependent upon his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislature. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by law from punishment for any murders which they should commit against the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun under circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has exercised domestic insurrection among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these usurpations, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, hold them, as we do the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We now, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved of all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance upon the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. God bless USA.
Thanks for playing that, Mr. Everson, and Mr. Ken Kreft, if he's watching. Thank you for that. I know a lot of the citizens were asking, who's he talking about? What's going on in light of the 4th of July and in celebration of. Mr. Kreft likes to come down to the commission office, and believe it or not, he actually recites verbatim these speeches from mind, from his memory. He's not actually reading a teleprompter, and it's very impressive. And he's done this for years. And I think we should celebrate a Caddo Parish citizen that can not only recite these speeches verbatim, but takes the time out of his day to give us the history lessons so that we never forget it. So I applaud you, Mr. Kreft. Thank you for doing that for the 4th of July. And even though we can't meet in public together, I think that you formed that video and sent it to us so that we could show the citizens and they could get a glimpse of back into the past and where we started as a country.
Well said, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Taliaferro. I don't see any other commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson, we will move on.
That brings us to new business. Our first item of new business is just to acknowledge the certificate of teleconference that's attached. This next item on the agenda is the authorized introduction of ordinance number 5962 of 2020. It's an emergency ordinance mandating masks. I'm sorry, did I hear a motion?
That was from Commissioner Jackson. I think it was kind of choppy. Commissioner Jackson, is that you?
Yes, so move to approve.
Second.
Okay. I got a motion by Commissioner Jackson and a second by Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on that motion?
I have an amendment when the time comes.
Sure, you say you had an amendment?
Yes, I'd like to add an amendment.
Okay, what's that amendment?
I'd like to add that the parish administrator the parish administrator may use CARES Act funding to hire private security to help ensure enforcement.
I believe that dies for a lack of second.
Oh, second. Sorry, second.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if Commissioner Jackson was finished.
Got it. Okay. Got a motion on the floor that Commissioner Jackson makes to provide the CARES Funding Act for our parish administrator to hire private security to enforce this. Seconded by
if needed.
Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on that motion?
Yes, I saw on the news yesterday where the sheriff was saying he felt that he didn't have the manpower and he would enforce it. I saw he said he would force it if they got around to it. And so what I know New Orleans is doing is New Orleans has utilized private security companies to be able to join forces with their zoning, be able to join forces with their code enforcement, and be able to join forces with NOPD to help ensure compliance and enforcement of their face covering mandate. And so Caddo, there's no reason why I don't see Caddo wouldn't be able to do the thing. I guess they would do it under RFP and to ensure compliance.
Okay. Attorney Frazier, can you please speak on the legalities of private security enforcing public law?
Commissioner, it would be something that we would have to look into. I'd like to take a look at what New Orleans has put in place. There will be limits maybe to that enforcement, but if what is needed is feet on the ground to report something to the proper or to law enforcement to get them there so that law enforcement does not have to spend time going to look for violations or whatever. I don't see that there would be a problem with that, but I would like to more fully investigate what New Orleans has in place.
Okay. North and East Baton Rouge, I think, has a model too.
Point of information. Okay.
Yes, sir. Bro.
I wanted to. I know that Chief Prater was addressed on this issue, but it didn't seem as though, from the conversation that I heard, that he was really in support of it. I'm liking that sense of comfort.
On your point of clarification, I would have to suspend the rules to allow for Sheriff Prater to speak. And I also have 4 commissioners in front of you. So I guess if the next on the list is John Paul Young, if you would yield and possibly make a motion to allow to suspend the rules. Okay, he's giving me a thumbs up. So commissioners, if it would be all right, we could suspend the rules via a motion if I can get a second, and we'll let Sheriff Prater address this question.
Second.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. All right, so the motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to allow for the sheriff to speak on this. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn. I didn't
Yes.
hear that, Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I heard that. Commissioner Gage-Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes with unanimously with no opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Welcome to our meeting today, Sheriff Prater. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
I think you've heard kind of the questions that have been posed so far. I guess your opinion on, first off, the mandatory mask, and then in relation to Commissioner Jackson would like to set up a private task force of security. I guess your thoughts on that?
Well, to begin with, let me straighten out what was said, that I wasn't necessarily in favor of the masks. I hadn't said whether I was in favor of them or not. I just said that the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office has a lot of things that we have to do. We juggle a lot of balls. And so therefore we will enforce we will report and respond to complaints as the amount of time that we have, providing we're not on a more pressing matter, which simply makes sense. It's not going to be a mass call. It's not going to be a priority compared to a burglary call. And so we would respond, and we would ask that that everybody just settle down and appropriate face coverings be used is what we would do. It's like I say, it's up to the commission whether they're going to do this or not. It is somewhat confusing, and our job as leaders, our job is to clarify, not confuse. I know the city of Shreveport has a mandate now to wear masks. Now the parish is considering a mandate to wear masks. Is that including all the municipalities in the parish? Is it the same mandate? Is it the same rules, the same enforcement? Or is the parishes just the unincorporated areas? And so that our job, like I say, is to clarify. So there's a lot that's being said. Everyone's trying to go really fast to get this done because of the urgency. But I'm a little confused myself as far as what applies. The parish, do they trump the city of Shreveport? And that would be something for y'all to determine and decide what you think the case may be. But the sheriff's office, we took an oath. We took an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution of Louisiana and the laws and the Constitution of the United States. That means that we won't ignore a law that y'all passed, but we will use discretion in the way that we enforce it, in the way that we respond to it. And that's only appropriate, and that's the way it always has been. As far as private security goes, I would tread very cautiously hiring a private person to start enforcing laws. That's going to really tie us up, because there's going to be lots of problems when somebody goes in a store up.
I think I was misstated. I think Commissioner Chavez, Mr. President, I think you misstated what I said. I didn't say that the private company would be enforcement. The private company would be there to make sweeps and make the rounds, and they can report back. Or just like if the zoning administrator has to, if they have a violation going on with the business, the zoning administrator has inspectors who can go out and issue citations. The sheriff just said he may not have the manpower to respond to a mass call if they got an armed robbery going on. So I'm not saying that we're asking them to enforce anything. We're asking them to be boots on the ground, eyes and ears to help ensure compliance.
On that topic, Commissioner Jackson, I guess the question would be, if somebody's at a store and they refuse to wear a mask, it's easy for the zoning board to know who's in violation because there's an address painted on the street. But a private entity has no law, and Sheriff Prater, correct me if I'm wrong, but how can they force a private entity to furnish their ID to write them the citation if they have no post certification or public power to force that private?
I think you're reading the ordinance wrong. So before we confuse anybody, if I'm correct, the ordinance puts the onus on the business. To ensure compliance. And so if you're at 123 Northport Boulevard and that business is located at that what's the name, then you have the address of the business, you know who the general manager is of the business. We can go back to our own zoning or our own permits and pull up who the owner of the business is or who's the responsible party. So we're not talking about citing individuals like somebody gets pulled over for a DWI. We're talking about, if my understanding of the ordinance is correct, is we're talking about ensuring that businesses are making sure that the patrons are in compliance.
I hear what you're saying, but if I mean, we can go down this rabbit hole, but I'm not so sure I want to put this onus on the business to force compliance. But I'll yield my comments and give Sheriff Prater the floor.
That's what the ordinance is, though. I mean,
can we get back to the point of business?
Right. I don't want to waste the sheriff's time talking about something that's not in the ordinance. If we're going to talk about something that's just not in the ordinance, then it's not germane. What I'm talking about is the ordinance, and the ordinance is about ensuring compliance, that the business is making sure that the patrons are compliant. I believe that is what the ordinance is. Legal, is that correct?
That do is go on and vote it in, and we could make changes later.
To answer your question, that is correct. It's also my understanding that the amendment is to use private security if needed. And it's also my understanding that any private persons would not be issuing citations, but would be in fact reporting violations to the sheriff for them to enforce at his discretion when his deputies have time. So that's where I think we are.
I'm taking out the discretion part. I'm saying if a complaint is reported and it's been noted that people are there not complying, then they would get a citation. Just no different than how we do with zoning. If the zoning inspector goes out somewhere and they find a violation, or even if we do a underage alcohol, what's the name? If they're found in violation, there's some kind of way that they get cited. Some kind of way.
The zoning person that we have that issues citations is deputized.
Okay.
Let's, Commissioner Jackson, if you will, I'm going to give the floor back to John Paul Young. He's the first in line. Then we'll move on to LBJ and Atkins and Watts. And
okay, thank you.
I want to make a clarification too with Chief Prater, because I didn't say that he didn't support the mask. I just wanted to know whether or not he was in support of doing what we were doing. That's all.
All right, Commissioner Young, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I only want the floor if Sheriff Prater is finished speaking.
Yes, sir. Unless you need something else from me, you know how I stand as far as what we're going to be doing.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. I appreciate and respect your oath and your service and for your presence today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think most of you know I've been trying to help work on this ordinance a lot, and you should have in your emails the latest version of it, which has several changes that were suggested to me by people from the business community and the legal community. And those are all pretty well marked, and they're all changes that make it less expensive or less onerous for a business to be in compliance with the mask ordinance. At a high level, there are things like no longer saying that a business is required to distribute masks to people who don't have them if they want to enter, but instead making available at their request any remaining masks that we have in the parish supply, so that they'll, like, instead of placing a burden, we provide a resource. Another is to remove the restrictions on non-businesses, like gatherings that are not taking place in business establishments. For instance, a protest downtown or a party in a field in Austin, which are things that we're not used to regulating and, like, don't really need to get into right now, I think. And then finally, there's well, so just for emphasis, I'm not sure if all the commissioners noted this, but there's no penalty for individuals. There's no new rule that an individual has to follow that's being proposed by the parish. The rule would be instead that any non-compliant customer inside a business can, after a warning and only at the business's option, be requested to be removed from the premises as being there without permission because of the mask rule. I've spoken to numerous district managers for large retailers, and they expressed to me that similarly to the sheriff, they didn't want to say, yes, we want this rule, no, we don't want this rule, but they did describe in functional terms that they wanted to protect their employees, and they had a lot easier time protecting their employees if there was a local ordinance that they could enforce against defiant, non-compliant customers. But they said that that was good for their business and was good for their employees, and it's what they prefer. This was a district manager for Walmart. I also spoke to one from Kroger and CVS. These I think are rules that all the businesses can easily follow, and they're things that those district managers said that they were already doing in some places and was not a problem for them. And then finally, for the violations, so after a warning, a business can get a violation, but it can also have its license suspended or revoked instead of a violation. So there's options. So it's possible that some business may not have the cash. We don't want to, like, overburden that, but we can say, like, unless you come into, like, a better form of compliance, then your business license can be suspended. And that's just it's a less onerous way of getting compliance. I think that's everything I want to point out to people about the change in the ordinance. I also had some questions for our attorneys. Is this an okay time to ask them?
Yes, you still have the floor, Commissioner Young.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a few questions from our attorneys. I know I gave you a heads up on some of these, Attorney Frazier and Attorney Bernstein. So first of all, I really wanted to know the answer to the sheriff's question. I want to know what the jurisdiction is where we can conceivably enforce this. Is it inside Vivian, or is it only outside Vivian in the unincorporated areas of the parish, for instance? Do y'all have an answer on that you could share with us?
Commissioner, this is Henry Bernstein. The ordinance would only apply in the unincorporated areas of the parish.
Okay. Thank you. And then I have another question about whether this is within our legal authority. Some people have said that they don't think so. I know that this raises some constitutional questions, and I asked Attorney Frazier if she would speak to us about those briefly. I also wanted to ask, in connection with those, would there be any benefit to the parish in getting an Attorney General's opinion about this ordinance, like on an emergency basis? Would that absolve us of any liability? Perhaps the one that was mentioned to me as a risk is liability to businesses for lost revenue. I haven't heard that governments are liable for that kind of thing before, but I wanted to ask your opinion. And if so, would a favorable Attorney General opinion protect us against any liability for lost revenue claims at all? And those are my questions for now, except for one more, which is if anything, like if a suit is brought to oppose this ordinance, what are the remedies that a court might grant against it? Are there any remedies other than an injunction against enforcement? Thank you.
Commissioner, to answer your question about an attorney general's opinion, it's not my understanding that they actually do those on an emergency basis. So if you were to request one, it would be within their normal time frame, usually about 6 to 8 weeks. Additionally, an attorney general opinion is really only an opinion from another attorney. It is not something that can absolve a party from any legal liabilities. So that would not, I guess, protect the parish in the event that the parish was sued. In the event that the parish was sued, there would be remedies ranging from injunction, which is probably the most likely remedy. I'm not aware of a situation where a court has awarded damages, but I guess that could be something. But damages would seem to be a little bit speculative because I'm not real sure how, in light of the pandemic, a party could even prove that. Now, as to whether that is within the commission's legal rights and constitutional, under the 10th Amendment, the states absolutely have the right via their state government and local governments to provide for the health, public safety, and welfare of their citizens. There's been numerous court opinions on this, from everything from vaccines. The Supreme Court has affirmed that the requirement of vaccines, seat belts, helmets on motorcycles, and most recently in dealing with the pandemic, the Supreme Court refused to issue an injunction against state orders that put caps on the number of people that could assemble at church under the First Amendment. So the Supreme Court recognizes the legal right of the local and state governments to govern in this area. So I do not think that is, I think it's well within your rights as a government to require these.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Attorney Frazier. I also, so I have one more point that I just wanted to point out to all the commissioners, which is that places of worship are not mentioned in this ordinance, and only businesses and business establishments. And then I also believe that procedurally I need to make a motion to substitute the newest version of the ordinance for adoption. Is that right, Mr. President?
Sort of. I mean, yes, you're right, but you would better do it now after you speak. You have to before. So if you want, I'll put you back on the board for Commissioner Taliaferro.
Please put me back on the board. Thank you.
All right. And that being said, acknowledge that currently we have a substitute motion to your original motion by Commissioner Jackson. So if we do vote on one, we're going to have to fix all this. But I'm going to add you back on there. Vice President Johnson.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the amended version, and to make the amendment on that version of the fines, that on the second offense, it would be up to $500 instead of $500 solid.
Second.
Did you include my? And also to include Commissioner Jackson's amended part to the original one.
Second. Yes, that's second.
Okay, so we got the new motion by LBJ on the amendment that we received via email, as well as coupled with Commissioner Jackson's substitute motion, and the different on the verbiage of instead of $500 be up to $500. Mr. Everson, do you have that?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I have.
And just a point of clarification, Vice President, on the fines, this was one question I had. Who's actually billing this fine, and who is this money going to?
The fine would go to the business, and then the proceeds of the fine.
I guess what I'm asking is who is the business paying? If they have to write a check for $500, whose name is on that line that they're paying?
Caddo Parish Commission.
Okay. Got it. All right, LBJ, would you like to speak on that motion?
No.
Okay. Next I have is Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm really disappointed at what I've been hearing today. It's not as if businesses in our community are already struggling, and we're looking at putting more regulation and more fines on top of our businesses and requiring them to monitor hundreds or thousands of customers that are coming in and out of their organizations, providing them with face masks that the business has to buy and ensure that they get to the customers coming in. I just think that this is a very inappropriate action that we're considering. Oh, and then I might also add that we have roving bands of monitors to ensure that people are in compliance, and if they're not in compliance, they report them to the appropriate authorities. I think we are opening up Pandora's box here. It's been my personal opinion that one gets more positive results from requesting people to do things as opposed to demanding that people do things. And that's what we're doing here. We're demanding that they do things, and we're fining them if they don't. And we're monitoring and patrolling and assessing their every move. I just think this is a really bad idea. I don't support any of it. And let me remind you all that the city has already put an ordinance in place within the city limits of Shreveport. So we're just talking about the unincorporated portion of the parish, the portion of the parish that has the least amount of population, the least population density, the least amount of interaction between our citizens. Those are the people that this ordinance would apply to. And I might also add that these are also the most independent individuals that live in our parish. So they will be even more outraged by such actions as we're proposing here. And they're likely to revolt against the action and be even more cavalier in their use of a mask instead of trying to be more respectful of the use of a mask. So I think it's a big mistake to mandate the use of masks in the unincorporated area. I would support a resolution that strongly encourages the use of masks, but I'm certainly opposed to anything that mandates the use of masks. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have Atkins and then Commissioner Watts. I'm sorry, Watts and then Commissioner Taliaferro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, all of us have heard the public plea for help to provide a safer environment for Caddo citizens. I understand that this might be a sensitive matter to some. However, we have a responsibility. This legislation to mandate masks in Caddo Parish is in response to the public health crisis, this global COVID-19 pandemic. Coronavirus will not allow us to continue business as usual. 240 people have died in Caddo in 4 months. Those deaths are tragedy. The numbers are steadily rising with no cure in sight. And many citizens are too relaxed about protecting themselves and others. Commissioners, we are obligated to protect the at-risk population, the elderly, the disabled citizens of Caddo Parish. We don't know how long this new normal will last. However, we do know that frontline workers are risking their lives daily to provide patient care and essential services. And we must help to keep them safe during this pandemic also. While businesses are dealing with lasting effects economically, much of their time is spent on health and wellness instead of their business operations. Many employees of local retail establishments has asked for our help. They want help reinforcing masks while inside of their businesses. This is a constantly evolving situation, And through the stages of recovery, we must stand on what we do know that works, which is masks or facial coverings. And to be most efficient, everyone in a public setting outside of their homes needs to wear a mask. Also, encourage practice social distancing and washing your hands. Too many families are suffering from the loss of their loved ones who lost their battle with COVID-19. We don't go fishing without life jackets or often jump out of planes without parachutes. Let's protect each other and our most vulnerable citizens by masking up, staying back, and washing up. Commissioners, I ask for your vote in favor of supporting this legislation, urging masks, requesting and mandating masks to be worn to stop the spread and ultimately save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow commissioners, and those checking in on the Facebook Live. Just by the conversations that are going on today, there is a lot of confusion. There's too many changes. There's too many questions to even consider this at this time, in my opinion. I think the commissioner's responsibilities are for those. Obviously, as Commissioner Atkins says, we are going to be dealing with the unincorporated areas if we choose to pass this piece of legislation. First and foremost, I am, despite some opinions, I am mindful of fellow citizens and the health of my fellow citizens, and I want everyone to stay well. I believe it's our responsibility to I don't think it's our responsibility to legislate medical issues, but I also believe that business owners should not be told how to run their businesses. They should have that opportunity to make the decisions about their business for themselves and their families. Do masks help? Absolutely. I'm sure that they do. And I'll do my part to ensure that we stay open, that all of our businesses stay open by wearing my mask responsibly when I'm in an enclosed area and I'm bumper to bumper with my fellow constituents. But my position has always been is that making medical or healthcare decisions is not under the scope of the Caddo Parish Commission. If the COVID situation, was that dire, and not to say it's not serious, but the CDC and Homeland Security, the governor, they would have issued instructions stating so and mandates supporting those decisions. Cases are up, we understand that. But treatment is also initiated. We have treatments now where we didn't before. And ventilator use, if I'm correct, is down, and so are deaths that are down. But to piggyback on a questionable mandate that the city of Shreveport has implemented would not be in the best interest of all. I says we have too many rules and regulations which we cannot verify, and everyone now is an expert. And the goal line seems to keep changing. Now the airborne, it stays airborne for 16 hours, not 14, not 12, but now 16. So my concern is that what happens when those droplets absolutely fall down on a surface? Is that surface now contaminated, or is it not? We are getting so many different pieces of information that it's hard, very difficult for anyone to keep track of. We can easily slip into a society where if you exercise to choose your rights, you're the outsider. You're the bad guy, the uncaring citizen who doesn't care about anyone but themselves. Then we were encouraged, to report our friends, our families, and those who we do business with to area law enforcement. This is not right, my fellow Americans. This is not what America is all about. It's the freedom to choose. I'm the product of law enforcement. I'm a rule follower, but not at the expense of relinquishing my freedoms. I'm also a strong proponent of doing the right thing, for those that we serve, and sometimes it is unpopular, no matter what side you're on. I want my fellow constituents and everybody in Caddo Parish that I value your help. You do matter, and I want everybody to know that, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, sir, Commissioner Epperson.
Call for the question on the motions as amended.
I believe my hand was up.
Second.
Well, yeah, no, we're not. I wouldn't
Mine's
call you.
up too.
You were just saying that you wanted to get on. I actually have a couple more people in front of you, but I would definitely add you after Commissioner Hopkins and Commissioner Lazarus.
Is it my turn?
Yes, we have Hopkins, Lazarus, and then I actually personally wanted to speak, and then I have Epperson, and then I have Jackson. So Commissioner Hopkins.
Okay.
Mr. President, my hand is up as well. It's been up for a while, ever since Commissioner Atkins spoke.
Actually, I don't show yours up, Vice President, but I'm going to add you to the list. If you look on the participations, your hand is actually not highlighted, but I'm going to put you on after Commissioner Jackson, if that's okay.
Well, that's because I just got booted out and then put back in, so it drops me when that happens, I guess.
I apologize. I didn't boot you out. I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened. Commissioner Hopkins.
Okay. Actually, I supported our funding of COVID testing. I thought that was important, especially in our rural area. I have supported the funding of masks for the underserved and the people that need it. And actually on Friday, I was actually surprised. We had a resolution on there that finally got it right, that we were going to be encouraging people to wear a mask. We were telling the people of this parish and suggesting and encouraging them to wear a mask. We weren't telling another body in Washington or Baton Rouge. We were finally going to tell something by resolution that I actually agreed with. And then on Monday, we get to a mandate. And I just cannot support a mandate. I really can't support a mandate that says we're going to fine our business owners. Those business owners are not always at those restaurants, C-stores, wherever it is. They're not there all the time. They're going to be the ones penalized. We're talking about a small area in the rural area. Again, like usual, the rural area, we get it and we're supposed to smile. Well, we're not smiling. The calls I've gotten the last 2 days are pretty one-sided. And I understand each and every one of those that support this. I understand your side. I disagree with it, but I do not support this. I don't support us trying to make these changes today and add to it in any form. I do not support a mandate. I may lose, and that's the way the democracy works. I understand that. But I just think we're not going about it the right way. We're penalizing the wrong people. And, I think if we want to tell people you should, or we urge you to wear, I'm for that. But I'm not for mandating someone has to wear a mask going into someone else's business. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Lazarus.
I just wanted to echo Commissioner Atkins' comments and Commissioner Hopkins as well. I too funded and voted to fund the COVID testing, voted to help with the masks, but this is a step too far. You're asking people, rural Caddo Parish, which is primarily mine and Mr. Hopkins' district. Most all the other commissioners, most of their districts are inside city limits of Shreveport, and they've already got this. So what you're putting this burden on is rural Caddo, unincorporated Caddo Parish. Why do you want to burden these businesses further when they're already down? I have some questions about taking the time to read these new amendments that are on there. We got this email about 45 minutes ago, and we've been in this meeting ever since. I haven't had time to read all that stuff. So I think we need some time. The way it is now, I can't support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lazarus. Really quick, guys, I'll give my opinions on this, and then next we have Epperson and Jackson. Obviously, I agree with the majority Republican delegation on this one. As a personal business owner and somebody that deals with business owners every day, they're hurting, guys. I want to urge you to take a breath and just wait for a minute, and let's seriously think about this. We're getting 3-4 months out of COVID, and we've had so many businesses that have shut down because financially they just couldn't make it. Those small businesses are the backbone of America and the backbone of our city. We don't have oil and gas and manufacturing like we used to. We're stuck with a service industry. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the end of the day, this service industry, they're just barely trying to make it. And with waitresses and waiters and cooks all out of work, stuck on unemployment, the business owners were doing everything they could to try to feed us. And we're going to put additional weight on top of them. That's just not right. I think we should take a breath and just wait for a minute and call the local businesses and ask them, do they really want this? Because at the end of the day, that's who it's going to hurt the most. It's not going to hurt any of them. And I heard somebody mention that this is going to help the businesses enforce the rules, but a business has the right to restrict service to somebody. They can mandate that a mask be worn within their establishment. We have capitalism where they can choose to run their business and the safety of their employees any way that they deem. When smoking was allowed, there was bars here that outlawed smoking and would ask people to leave if they were smoking. And people that enjoyed not having cigarette smoke patronized those, and they went there because of the fact that they were not smoking there. So I think we should give them the availability to choose for themselves and run their business the way that they see fit. I just don't want us to get in the habit of telling a business how to run their business. I've seen on Facebook within the last 3 days the amount of comments of people that said they're going to go spend their dollars in Bossier City and not in Shreveport. That's the last thing we need right now. We need to get as much tax credit as we can get from the local businesses and give them as much help as we can give them to allow them to stay open and produce revenue. We're already in a broken environment when it comes to our facilities. If you look around within the city of Shreveport, we don't need to do this to them. And at the end of the day, this doesn't have anything to do with the city and the city businesses, which, like a couple of former commissioners said, this is only in the unincorporated areas. So my district is in Southern Hills, 100%. So the business owners in Southern Hills, they're already going to be under the mandate of the city of Shreveport. So I would like to look towards the advice of Commissioner Hopkins and Commissioner Lazarus and ask them, how should we vote on this? Because this is only really affecting your area. So that's what I would like us to do. If we could just hold back, maybe wait until Thursday to vote on this, or even delay it a week and just see how people feel. I know I can't make a motion on that, but I would like to ask you guys to do that and think for yourself before we vote on something. Lastly, I disagree wholeheartedly with a private enforcement. I think at the end of the day, there's a reason why we elect public officials to run the police, because policing is a very unique situation that I don't want us to get involved in. I think the sheriff does a great job, and I know he's going to follow the law if we pass this. However, I don't want to see a private business going into our businesses and telling them how to run their business, not one that we dictate. So thank you, commissioners, for the time. Commissioner Epperson, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. I call for the questions on the motions as amended.
Everybody has not had a chance to speak yet.
That's irrelevant if we get a second and a vote.
I thought we agreed that everybody had to have at least one time around before we call for the question.
That Commissioner Epperson's call for the question, I did not hear a second. So that dies for a second. Commissioner Jackson, you're on. Oh, okay. Okay. Commissioner Jackson, unfortunately, Robert's Rule of Order is it stands.
Don't enforce Robert's Rules of Order today. We should have been enforcing Robert's Rules of Order 3 weeks ago when we clearly said everybody had to have at least one shot before we call for the question.
Commissioner Jackson,
I have been getting knocked on and off the feed since I got on. And I'm hearing a lot of foolishness out here that I want to address.
It's hard to hear you. I apologize. Commissioner Epperson, would you allow Commissioner Jackson to say his piece before we move to your motion on the call for the question?
Okay.
I'm on the board too, so I want my part to be said as well.
Okay.
Just let everybody talk.
Everybody do their thing.
Commissioner Epperson, I appreciate you yielding in So Commissioner Jackson, you now have the floor.
Yes, I have heard this argument about this is going to be only limited to residents outside of the unincorporated areas of the city of Shreveport. That's a lie. I have constituents. I myself, I live in North Shreveport, and I go to the Walmart that is not in Blanchard, nor in Shreveport. I go to the AutoZone that is not in Blanchard or in Shreveport. This weekend, my family went to the fireworks place that was not in Blanchard and not in the city of Shreveport. And those folks up there at that fireworks store didn't have a single mask on. And we left. So this notion that, oh, this is only going to apply to a very small portion of town, that's not true. We got people from the Cooper Road that go up there to that Walmart, and these folks are not wearing masks. They won't mask up. You got to remember, back in May, we encouraged people. Commissioner President Chavez, you had a press conference every day, standing next to Dr. White, standing next to the mayor, where we encourage people to wear masks, wash their hands. So we were encouraging and requesting people to do this back in May. Here we are in July, where we can't even start the school year because we don't know how to get our hands around this thing. And this whole nonsense about the businesses have suffered. I'm a small sole proprietor. I didn't get any PPP money or SBA money. But if I'm going to sell a car to somebody, when they come meet me, they got to wear a mask. Just yesterday, I had a lady who wanted to come meet me to buy a car. I told her she needed a mask. She went and found her a mask to come meet me. So if we ask business to step up to the plate, the vast majority of businesses will step up to the plate. What we ought not do as leadership is give them an out, give them a cop-out. And yes, I am asking us to look at best practices as New Orleans and Baton Rouge has used, is to bring in a private entity, not to enforce anything, but you just heard the sheriff say they have more pressing issues. And so you need to, we shouldn't pass down any edict if we're not sure that we have the manpower and resources to address these issues, to at least ensure compliance with these issues. What I'm hearing is a bunch of excuses. And we ought to be tired of seeing COVID-19 whip our tails. Dr. White's husband was on a ventilator, a healthy man, on a ventilator, because he probably came in contact with a knucklehead who wouldn't do what they were supposed to do. Shame on us for sitting here having this conversation, playing this whole political rhetoric. Danny McCormick sitting up here burning masks when his silly self was just sitting out on the steps at the Capitol saying the governor had no right to issue executive orders. We ought to leave it to the local folks to do it. Now here the local folks are doing it. He ain't happy with that. What does he want us to do? Wait till all the people die around here? Wait till our hospital system is overrun? Danny McCormick will tell you he went to Bossier last week to try to go to an AT&T store, and they turned his behind away because he didn't have a mask on. I was sitting out there in the parking lot and watching. They turned him away. So this notion that they just gonna hop over to Bossier, that's not true. That's not true at all. So we've got to have common sense, and we've got to step up, and we've got to be leaders for our citizens. People patronize all over Caddo Parish. And I have a whole business area in North Shreveport where folks from Cherokee Park, North Highland, and the Cooper Road for Commissioner Johnson, they all go up there and they patronize that business. There's a Shane's up there. That's not in the city limit. There's a Silver Star Steakhouse up there that's not in the city limit. There's a Mexican restaurant that's not in the city limit. So stop this nonsense, man, and let's do the right thing for our people. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Commissioner. I got Commissioner Johnson, and then Cawthorn got on the board. Commissioner Epperson, I don't want to steal your thunder, but is it all right if Commissioner Cawthorn speaks and I'm gonna add you after him?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Vice President, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Well, just like Commissioner Atkins said, I'm appalled about some of the things that have been said today. you know, what is our scope? I heard that this is not the scope of the Caddo Parish Commission. What is our scope? Are we supposed to be helping people improve the quality of life? Are we supposed to be making sure we just collect tax money and do streets? No, we're at a point right now. This is called a pandemic. So being that it's a pandemic, it means that you're gonna have to think outside of the box. You're gonna have to do some things outside of the box in order to get things back to normal, or try to get it back to normal. And what we've been doing is urging people to do this, urging people to do that. It hasn't sunk in. So cases are still going up. Just on January the 1st, there was 2,083 cases in the state of Louisiana. On the 2nd, there was 1,383 cases. On the 3rd, there was 1,728. On the 5th, 1,937. On the 6th, 1,101. On the 7th, 1,938. So these numbers of cases are not going down, they're actually going up. And so we need to step up and say, put something in place, just like you do in everything else. Require people to wear seatbelts. You wearing seatbelts in the car. You know, that's an option, really. Seatbelt in the car is an option. But it's a law now that you have to wear a seatbelt in the car or you get a ticket. So what we're saying now is, because of the pandemic and because these numbers are not going down and we're trying to get back to normalcy, wear a mask until we can get the numbers down. Once you get the numbers down, the mask will come off. There's no big deal about that. It's not saying you're wearing a mask your whole life, but if the numbers are high and the numbers steady going up and you go in public places, I know all of us move around the parish of Caddo, and when we move around, you see people with masks on, you see people without masks on. And then you wonder, well, why they don't have masks on? Well, it's their option. They don't want to have it on. You urge me, so I'm not doing that. We need to be able to say to the citizens that want to stay safe and want to be able to go to stores, and want to be able to go out and enjoy the quality of life that they can, that masks will be mandatory until we get these numbers down. Then I heard about the, well, I don't know how I can approve an ordinance and got these changes and all that. Well, we done voted and approved ordinances and resolutions and nobody even seen. It was something that, well, this is what I want to do. I want to put this out there. There was nothing put in black and white. And we talk about the changes. There's 7 changes to this ordinance, and 4 of those is taking the word shall and making it into may. So that's actually making it even better for the business owners. So some of the things that he had put in there, if you agree to it the way it was, then you sure will agree to it the way it is now, because he has lightened up some of the shalls and made it into may. So all these excuses that I'm hearing about, just say you ain't gonna vote for it and don't vote for it. But all this opinionated stuff is just getting on my nerve. So y'all just need to just say, we ain't gonna vote for it and don't vote for it. And the ones that will vote for it will vote for it. But all this other rhetoric that you're putting out there to the public, it's nonsense. We got to stop doing it, because that's not what we've been elected to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Cawthorn.
Call for the question.
Commissioners, the only thing is I have Commissioner Burrell on, and I want to afford him his time.
No,
so if you
don't forget me then. If you
no, I have you on there. I was
Go ahead,
yielding for your motion.
Talk, and then we'll vote on it.
Let's Commissioner Cawthorn, let's do this. If Commissioner Epperson wanted to speak on it as opposed to make that motion, I'd rather afford him his time on speaking before Commissioner Burrell, because he's been patiently waiting. If that's okay.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Let everybody talk. Let everybody talk. We'll vote.
All right, Commissioner Epperson, you have the floor.
I just, you know, what I've listened to, I try to sit here patiently and just listen. But I don't know how many of you have visited your doctor lately, but I visited, had 2 appointments lately. I had to go in, check in, give my cell phone number. First of all, I had to have a mask before I go in a doctor's office. Check in, then give them my cell number, go back to my vehicle, And when my appointed time come up, they called me on my cell, left the parking lot, went straight to the office. This is highly selfish. And, George Washington in his farewell speech, he stated, beware of impostures of being patriots. Beware of impostures being patriots, calling themselves patriots. Do you know that we have the security of this nation at stake by what we are doing here now? I got 2 calls from a resident in Greenwood that had retired from the military, moved to Greenwood, said they loved it, but guess where they have to go? Where they got privilege. They got privileges at the base, at the BX, and the exchange and the commissary. Can you imagine? You remember what happened on the Navy ship? Over 1,500 people on the battleship contracted COVID. Had to be pulled out of commission. Can you imagine the people that retired here and live in our neighborhoods, be they in the city or the urban areas of the parish, that have to go on base to perform our duties in defense of our nation? These people are being subjected to the same things. Can you imagine if 2 or 3 crews got affected by COVID of a B-52 and they need to be called into action? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? This is very selfish, myopic, political poison, and it does not make any sense. It's more than beyond somebody sitting up hollering, we got to get the economy back. Well, if your health is not in good shape, nothing is going to be back. Just remember, what you're voting on today affects the security of this nation. And you should have more thought and consideration about our military personnel at Barksdale that's on active duty, as well as the ones that thought this was a nice place that have retired and chose to come back here and live here. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Epperson, Commissioner Burrell, and then Cawthorn.
Well, I wasn't going to say much on this because I've heard a lot of different comments. Some I agree with, others I don't. I just think that we've gotten to the point where we politicize something that is rather a simple issue of safety in a very, very critical time of our lives. We none of us have experienced what we are experiencing right now. I went out yesterday and I just felt a sense of uncomfortableness because I wasn't sure where I would even pick up a virus. It's just getting to the point of almost paranoia. But at least wearing a mask, it gives me a sense of comfort whether I'm going into a store or going into my office building over at 820 Jordan. I can understand totally the other side of this issue about civil liberties or what have you, but we are at war. I don't think we recognize that we are at war with an invisible enemy that could attack any of us at any time. We as a government body does have a responsibility to the people whenever many times they don't understand the responsibility they have to themselves of keeping themselves safe. So I understand that side too. To wrap it up, my biggest concern at this point, and I started out with making a statement to Chief Prater because I wanted to make sure that they would be involved in this if we implement it, because on Monday it was stated that we don't have a law enforcement office for the parish. The parish commission doesn't. Let's put it that way. And that concerned me because I'm learning something all the time being a new member. And so that prompted me to ask well, are they on board? Will they help with what we do? Or are we going to get lip service from that perspective? That concerns me more than all of these other arguments. But the other issue is, if there are things that we're trying to put in this ordinance that we can further flush out, because I still got a few questions, non-major that we can't pass it, but some that would make me feel more comfortable if I was a little bit more clear. So, Mr. President, at this point, I can support something like this, but I think it's how would you say? It is a piece of legislation in progress that we need to really massage more. I think we got the framework, but I think we can massage it a little bit more to make it more comfortable for you all, for the other side, because I know there's some politics involved in both sides, but I think you all may be under more pressure than we are from our side. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. And I say thank you truly. I like your thought process on that. Commissioner Cawthorn, you have the floor. Commissioner Cawthorn, you're muted. Hit that little, there you go.
As they say in the Baptist church, all has been said, all has been called. Call for the question.
Second.
All right, we got a call for the question. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
No.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly Farrow.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
That motion carries with 11 in support and 1 in opposition.
All right, now we vote on the amended and, well, actually, we have to vote on the substitute. So,
So the substitute motion, the last one that I have on record, and let's just make sure that we're on the same page here. The last motion that I have is the substitute motion from Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Jackson, that would advance the the amended version, and also include the language that Commissioner Jackson originally offered as an amendment, and also included an amendment from Commissioner Johnson, limiting the fine level.
okay.
All
right.
Clarification, Mr. President.
So,
Yes, sir.
Could that motion be stated as amended and get all those on there and
Right.
just do it in one?
Right.
That's what he's going to do.
Well, I don't know. That's what I was asking.
Yes, I was just clarifying, that is the motion that is before you right now, and should it be adopted, we'll amend the document for tomorrow's vote.
I got a question on that. Being that this is an emergency ordinance and that's why it's listed on the agenda, shouldn't the vote be today?
Yeah, it's today.
And it's effective today.
A vote for adoption could be done today, but it was advertised as moving it forward to tomorrow's agenda. I think the reasoning behind that was given the controversial nature of the, where some people might stand differently.
That one right.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the reasoning it was done?
Commissioners, this is Attorney Frazier. Actually, the fact that it's on for authorized to be moved is my mistake, because we were in work session on Monday, and what it was not put on Monday was to authorize to move it to Thursday.
Okay,
And that was what I interpreted this meeting was for, to do the authorization today that could not be done on Monday because it was not unanimously added to the agenda.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Attorney Frazier. So commissioners, we'll vote on it, and I'm assuming the vote will stay whatever the vote is today, tomorrow. So
Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up.
Somebody give me some clarity.
Yeah.
Because this is an emergency ordinance. This is an emergency ordinance. I thought this was an emergency ordinance.
I thought it was too.
It is, but what an emergency ordinance is, usually your usual course is you put them on work session, you move them to a regular meeting. They can be read and voted on at the same time. To vote on it today, it needed to be introduced and read today. Your agenda says authorized for introduction tomorrow, and you have your public hearing set for tomorrow.
So basically, so in essence, we're just giving everybody a time to get in compliance. We're basically giving a 24-hour compliance, essentially, is what this will eventually do, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that your agenda advertised that it would be authorized for introduction on Thursday. So you're here to Thursday today, and then you will vote on passage tomorrow.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you. That's what I was trying to get clarification.
all right, Commissioner Burrell, I just want to make sure that you got that point of clarification read properly by Mr. Everson, and if so, we'll proceed with the vote.
That's fine, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner, Mr. Everson, go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
No.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Lazarus,
No.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
That motion carries with, let's see, 1, 2, 3,
7 to 5.
7 to 5. Yeah, just wanted to confirm that. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the next item, which is authorizing the introduction of resolution number 56 of 2020. It's a resolution enacting COVID-19 threat level system within Caddo Parish and otherwise providing respect thereto.
Move to advance.
Second.
All right, got a motion to advance by Commissioner Johnson and a second by, I believe it was Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on that motion?
I'd rather call for the question and go and vote on it because we didn't already hash this out again. So there ain't no sense in talking about all this same stuff over again. It's a threat level.
We got, I got Commissioner Hopkins on the board and Lazarus and Jackson. It looks like the board's lit.
Put me on the board. Put me on the board after Jackson. That's fine.
Okay, wait, Atkins on there too. I'll get you right after Atkins. So Commissioner Hopkins, go ahead.
I guess my question, Mr. President, is who will be the person with the authority to determine what level we are at? How will that be determined?
I'll yield to the author, Commissioner Johnson, if you'd like to address it. If not, we can wait till tomorrow and allow for the vote.
You want me to answer?
Yes, sir, please.
So,
if you'd like, you don't have to, if you'd like to.
So the commission in conjunction with Dr. White, we will talk about the number of cases. The cases are continuing to go up, and we feel that we are in a heightened emergency. Then that's when we'll go from one phase to another. And if the numbers are coming down, we'll go from one phase to another. It'll be in communication with more than one agency. You'll be talking to the hospitals. I mean, it's going to be a community type deal. Hospitals, Dr. White, and the commission.
So in essence, it will be through our emergency preparedness.
Yeah, it could run through that. It's fine.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Hopkins. Moving on to Commissioner Lazarus.
That was my question as well. I just want to know who was making this decision. Thank you.
Okay. And commissioners, I wanted to let you know that Miss White is on the call. So if anybody wanted to address her or if she wanted to make a comment on this, we do have her on board. So Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We do have a Office of Homeland Security. We do have a Homeland Security Director as well, as state law dictates that we should. And so, you know, Dr. Wilson, is Dr. Wilson on here?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay, Doc, if you could, can we see what's going on with that emergency management group? Because my understanding and my reading of that Homeland Security Act, because that's where the governor is operating from. He's operating from the Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness Act for the state of Louisiana. That's why I don't understand all these whole, oh, this is against the Constitution. This is state law. So state law gives the parishes the ability to set up these Homeland Security apparatuses, and hopefully our Homeland Security Department will help kind of coordinate these things. Isn't that why we set those things up? What is that not correct, Doc?
Yes, sir, it is, and it functions very well. We just need to utilize it.
Okay, because they pull in Dr. White, they pull in Mr. Knox.
Yes, sir.
With the
You're right.
hospital group. They pull in everybody. They pull in fire. They pull in police. And
That's
so,
correct.
I believe the commission president chairs that group.
Yes, sir. We have represented on that group. I usually sit on there, and along with Public Works Assistant Director and others, and the commissioners also, presidents also can attend the meeting as well. So we have a viable group, Commissioner Jackson. If we choose to use that, we do have, the infrastructure is there. There's no issue with the Homeland Security Department operations.
Okay, yeah, please let's work through them so that people won't kind of make it seem like Commissioner Johnson is not reinventing the wheel here, is what I'm saying. All he's doing is he's provided a threat level, and there's a group that's already set up to assess it. The other thing that I want to say that I didn't get to say, and I think we got to call a thing. What I have seen happen, and what a lot of folks have seen happen, because we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about systemic racism. What I have seen is, as COVID-19 numbers have revealed to disproportionately affect African-American communities, it's as if a lot of people in the world have said, let's just get back to business. I think we're overreacting. But I think y'all forgetting that there's a whole lot of people who you say you care about out there who are disproportionately impacted by this, by no fault of their own. Pastor Blake was healthy before he came in contact with COVID-19. He wasn't a sick man. He was healthy. And I think we forget that. I think that's lost on a lot of people. And so I would hope that as we continue to try to fight this invisible enemy, that we keep in mind that these are people that we all should be caring about, and we all should be caring about every single person who's affected by COVID-19. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll say that everybody in our community is affected by COVID-19, regardless of demographic. They all may be affected in different ways, but everybody's affected. To me, this is all a matter of personal responsibility. I'm a big believer in personal responsibility. I'm not sure that I trust the threat level assessment. I view it as an expansion of government control, and it also includes 2 mandatory mask levels. I'm opposed to mandatory masks. So for those reasons, I will not be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Talaferro, I see on the board really quick, I wanted to yield the floor to Dr. White in case she wanted to make any comments before we voted on this and somebody adjourned and she didn't get to speak her piece while she was on our meeting. Thank you for coming down here, Dr. White. Just quick, you have the floor if you wanted to make any statements.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak. You know, I agree with so many people on so many different points and disagree with so many people on so many points. But let me just tell you where we are right now here in Caddo Parish. Right now, our numbers are the highest that they have been. Our hospitalizations are the highest that they have been since we started this. Now, yes, we don't have the people on the vents. There's two reasons why that may be. Part of it is that we have changed the way we are treating people. We still have people dying. We had 23 people just yesterday. That was the highest we've been in several weeks. You know, so, you know, we're still in the midst of this pandemic. We have young people in the hospital. That's the other second reason why we may not see as many people on the vent. Although I'll tell you, I have 20-year-old twins who are both on ECMO right now, 20-year-olds. So if you think it can't happen to your children, your grandchildren, you're mistaken. While, you know, they're young and healthy, we don't know whether the 92-year-old with all the complications, some of them do great, some of them pass away. Some healthy people like my husband almost die 6 times, flatline 6 times, and some of them barely have a symptom. We can't tell who's going to do what. So if you're the one that gets really sick, your risk was 100%, wasn't it? We've asked people since this started, you know, when we got enough disease in our community, we said, okay, it's time for us to start wearing masks. We've asked, we've pushed, we've hollered, we've raised our voices. We've said, please do this. As far as the effect on our businesses, look, you want to talk about economically hard hit. My husband hasn't fully worked since March. He's the primary supporter of our family. He has a small business. It's a medical business, but he still is in the same place. I feel you. But if you make the governor make us take big steps back instead of us taking small steps back ourselves, I think we're going to end up in a worse position than we are if we ask people to simply wear masks. We're not asking them to wear them 24/7. We're asking them when they go into a store where they know they can't social distance, there's too many people that may be around them, to put that mask on for 15 minutes. There's almost no one with a medical condition that cannot do that. So, you know, I just ask you to really consider the public health. You know, I think about these workers at Walmart that I see every day. They're wearing their masks, but nobody's protecting them. And they have to deal with people hollering in the stores and talking loud to each other. And they're at risk. And they've been working every day, keeping that store open so we have it to go to. We need to think about those frontline workers, not just our docs, because we've got them PPE finally. We've got them covered. But those workers that have had to go to work every day since it started, they're the ones that have been hit really hard. They're the ones that are saying to me when we call them about outbreaks, nobody's protecting us. So I just want y'all to consider those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Commissioner Taliaferro.
I thought I was after Atkins.
Who is that?
It's Commissioner Johnson.
I'll yield my time to Commissioner Johnson.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, so what I just heard, you know, I know a lot of times you all will ask for expert opinions and then vote the way that opinion is basically said. Well, today you just heard another expert opinion from Dr. White. I'm going to see if you're going to follow Dr. White's advice on this. When you look at the number of deaths in Louisiana from COVID-19, it's really close. It's 52% Black and 46% white. That big number has failed. It used to be like a 70-30, but now it's a 52-46. It's affecting everybody. It doesn't matter about if you are low income or the highest person in the state, makes the most money in the state. It has no boundaries on that. We're talking about public safety. And if we can't come to a good agreement with more than just 7 commissioners on public safety, what are we down here for? Just to push the button on paving some roads, collecting some taxes, spraying. And that goes back to when I first got down here as a commissioner. West Nile was an issue. Guess who had the responsibility to spray moon for mosquitoes? Caddo Parish Commission. Our bill on spraying for mosquitoes went up because of that. When you had the plant in the water, guess who stepped up to the plate? Caddo Parish Commission. That was going to be killing the fish in the lake and upsetting the lake. So we spent extra money to kill that Salvania. This is nothing new for the commission. It is new for this term and some of the newer commissioners, but this is nothing new for the commission to step up to the plate for public safety. Now, if y'all want to still vote no, that's fine. But realize that people are watching this. And, you know, my district goes out into the parish. And when you talk about the most growing part of Caddo Parish, it's in District 2. Right there on Highway 1, right there by I-49. So, you know, my area is going to be mostly impacted by this because people come from the city and the rural area into that part of District 2. And I'm trying to protect all because there's no way that you're going to tell me that somebody that's in the most rural part of Caddo Parish is not going to come to Shreveport at some point in time. And there's no bubble protecting Risa, Louisiana from Shreveport or Dixie, Louisiana from Shreveport. There's no protective bubble. So, you know, all this rural area and less contact, that's a bunch of crap. And we need to just go and vote and do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And just wanted to let everybody know that Dr. White, she has to leave us. I believe she's got to go somewhere. So just want to give everybody the opportunity to tell her bye. She's the Regional Medical Director for Region 7 for the Louisiana Department of Health. Thank you for coming down, Martha White. And if anybody wanted to wish her farewell.
Thank you, Dr. White. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Hopkins and then Young. Todd may be muted. Oh, okay. He said he's got nothing to say. Commissioner Young, you have the floor.
I took my hand down.
Got it. Okay. Commissioner Burrell, you have your hand up.
I have one final comment on this, hopefully before we vote, and it's pretty much to partly address one of my fellow colleagues, Commissioner Atkins, because he made the statement, and I understand it. I can understand where he is on part of it, but when you start talking about government overreach, I know that's a concept, but when we're talking about, I wasn't really clear on this threat level suggestion that Commissioner Johnson had, and I was the one who brought up the initial questions as to how it was implemented. But at least today, I feel more comfortable because it was explained how it could be implemented. Again, I'd say we're fighting an invisible enemy. And going back to Commissioner Atkins' statement, if you just think shortly back when we were attacked, not by an invisible enemy, one that we could see, with the World Trade Center, 2001, you know, that was when President Bush was in office, a Republican. And if you remember, he initiated threat levels because of what he felt was an enemy attack on America. I don't see any different than of that enemy at that time being measured by that person who was in government, in which I could have easily said that it was a government overreach. We shouldn't have even considered it. We should do this on our own. But he was in a responsibility to do that. And he did that. And it gave some comfort to us as individuals, as citizens, when he did it. He didn't do it because we're Republican, Democrat, Libertarians, or what have you. And nobody criticized him on government overreach because he had a responsibility and he stepped up and did it. And I kind of look at it at this from the same perspective, except it's on a local basis. So I'm only saying that to address Commissioner Atkins' comment, in which I understand where he is on it, but I just wanted to do a comparative statement there and hope that he would recognize that this is not a government overreach. It is done elsewhere, and it's not necessarily done from a political standpoint. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Epperson?
Yes, sir. I learned something today. Is Robert Jump the gentleman that's over the Homeland Security? Mr. Wilson?
No, sir. No, sir. You had the director of Homeland Security on the call with us today, who's Chef Prater.
Okay. Well, what about Jump? I always get a lot of deals from.
Yes, sir. Jump works for Chef Prater, and he's a staff worker.
So would he be a part of that committee once we meet relative to the different levels?
I believe he is. He's the coordinator of the office.
Okay. And also, what about the casinos? Do you have to have a mask to go to the casinos? I don't go, but I wear a mask everywhere. But do you have to have a mask in the casinos?
I'm not sure, sir. I haven't been there.
Anyone know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will at 5 o'clock today.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Here we go. Just a couple of questions. First of all, since we're talking about Homeland Security and Robert Jump, who I've worked with at the main crisis center over there in Bossier, have we consulted with any one of them prior to adopting or prior to considering this adoption from Harris County, Texas on these threat levels? And that's my first question. And the second question is, I know that CDC has threat levels regarding the coronavirus. And my question really is why do we need another threat level scale? It seems that we're getting bombarded with information, as we've all discussed, that is somewhat convoluted. Some of it's factual, some of it's rumor. I'm thinking that we may just confuse our citizens even more. I'm all about threat levels, lived with them in the United States Air Force, as Dr. Wilson has. We're familiar with threat levels, or threat cons, or DEF cons, or whatever we're calling them now. So I'm all about that. I just want to make sure that we're not duplicating effort. I appreciate the effort, but I want to make sure that we're not duplicating. Go ahead.
Go ahead, LB. As the author? Well, I mean, we're going back to pushing everything back to local government. So the CDC is in Washington, D.C., and they might not be the hot zone at that particular moment. The hot zone could be in Louisiana, could be in Northwest Louisiana. So we need to be able to have a threat level in our area based upon what's going on. The governor is going to put it for the state. And what we can do is accept the baseline from the governor, or we can say we can take it a step above. We can't go below, but we can go same level or a step above. And so this is what this is about. As legislators, we make the policy, and then everybody else will either enforce or interpret it the way that it's done. So, I mean, when the state legislators meet, they don't come and say, well, do y'all want this? Do y'all want that? Before they make their legislation. I mean, our role is to make laws and so that people will follow those. Yeah, you can, as a commissioner, if you want to reach out to a certain person, that's fine. But our role is to make the laws. And so if we're making laws, we don't have to convert with everybody and get their approval. They might not approve of it, but it could be for the best of all of Caddo Parish and not only a portion. You know, when people call me about one little issue and I say, you looking at it at a small piece of pie, I'm looking at the whole pie. So that's all I'm saying is we need it because it's local government. We need to have a policy in place. We need to have something so people can understand why we're saying masks are mandatory.
VP, you cut out.
I'm done.
Are you, okay.
I'm done.
Commissioner Jackson, go ahead. You have the floor.
That was actually answering Commissioner Talaferro's question.
Okay. Commissioner Talaferro, you still have the floor. Are you wrapped up?
Yeah, I would just, I don't know when the appropriate time is, but I would like to have the opportunity, if we're going to consider and I've looked at the Harris County, and it's very concise and it's very informative. I think it could be beneficial, but I would like to have the opportunity to sit down with our local Homeland Security representatives and discuss whether there's something, possibly better than this, or this would definitely do our citizens well. So I wouldn't be in a position to vote on it today without consulting and, getting some feedback on the local professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And this is actually, Commissioner, just a authorization for introduction. So we will vote on it tomorrow. But on that same topic, if you could make the motion tomorrow to delay it, maybe that would gather you the time to get the information. So you'll have that availability tomorrow.
No, I can do that.
You got 24 hours. You got 24 hours.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jackson. Hey, Stephen, you may be muted. Are you muted?
Can you hear me?
There you go. We got you now. We got you.
I would suggest that we not wait until the meeting to try to get subject matter expertise. We all have phones, we all have emails, we all have a way to contact each other. And so if you need something, waiting till we get to the meeting is not the time to seek out subject matter expertise. Robert Jump is a call away. Sheriff Prater is a call away. Dr. Wilson, they're a call and an email away. So if you want subject matter expertise and things that I don't understand, I pick up the phone and I call them and I ask them, and they're more than happy. And it's usually no more than a 5 to 10 minute phone call where they explain and lay it out. And if they don't understand what it is, they get somebody on a call who can explain it better. And so utilize, just because we don't have people in our meeting to explain it to me, does not prevent us from going outside and using, there it is, our personal responsibility to go out and get that information so we can have it for our self-edification. The other thing that I point out is that the CDC issues guidance at a very broad level. If you recall, when they first started doing COVID-19 testing, the symptoms were very high. If you didn't have a cough, if you didn't have these particular symptoms, they were saying you couldn't get a test. You couldn't get a doctor's order. Well, what the CDC said was, yes, those are our guidance here, but you can set your own guidance at the local level. And that's what I see the threat level is. Yes, the CDC has their levels, but what you will always see at the bottom of the CDC guidance is do these in conjunction with your local public health. or local jurisdiction. So the CDC will always leave it to the most local folks to implement and execute. And we can't go anything less than what the CDC puts out, but we can always put anything a little bit further. So that's one of the things that I want to point out for the CDC is that their guidance is not the end. They always want local input because we're here on the ground. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see no other commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson, since we have our Homeland Security Director on the call with us, after this meeting, will you shoot him over a copy of this ordinance and Sheriff Prater, if you can give us your opinion tomorrow. I don't want to ask you right now. I know you won't even have time to peruse it when I ask you this question, but if Mr. Everson sends you that, you can look over those threat levels and just give us your opinion before tomorrow's meeting. I think that would help us. A lot of the guys have similar questions. Is the local healthcare professionals, what's their thoughts on that? That's all, Mr. Everson. We'll go for the roll call vote now to move this till tomorrow.
Okay. Commissioner Hopkins,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
No.
Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries with 9 in support and 3 in opposition.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Second.
All right, guys. See you tomorrow.